Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. In this presentation, we are going to discuss how to present evidence using VFC and virtual machines. And during this as well, I'm going to use some real life case studies and success stories to show you just how powerful VFC is. So just to give you a little bit of background information of who I am and my role at MD5. My name's Tom Cross and I'm the VFC technical manager here. I not only deal with all the technical queries that come in regarding VFC, but I also aid the sales team to provide technical and sales demonstrations of VFC. Some of you may know me already. Some of you may have never heard of me, but if there's anything that I can help with when it comes to VFC, the technical side, any features you want to go in more depth, then I'm the person that you'll need to contact. So just to give you now a little bit of insight into MD5 as a company. MD5 were founded in 2003, and we've been aiding law enforcement, government agencies, and legal firms ever since, offering a wide range of digital forensic expertise and e-discovery, e-disclosure services throughout. Not only are we one of the leading UK providers of these services, but we are also the creators of VFC. Which brings me nicely on to the next slide. So before we do go into what VFC actually is, I feel it's important to discuss what a virtual machine actually is. I imagine the majority of the people watching this are going to know what one is already. But for those that aren't aware, in a nutshell, a virtual machine is the emulation of a computer system. So they are based on the computer's architecture and works just like the physical computer itself. The creation of a fully functioning virtual machine is quite a tedious task, which is quite error prone as well. There's lots of different facets to it. Human error does unfortunately creep into these sort of things. VFC gets rid of all that headache of creating a virtual machine, getting rid of that human error aspect, and also creates you a virtual machine from start to finish, bypassing passwords, etc., which I will go into a bit further in this webinar. And VFC will do that in seconds. So what is VFC? VFC was created in 2007, so 17 years ago, and has been developed ever since to become the tool that it is today. With the 17 plus years experience, VFC gives a whole new dynamic to the way an investigator views the original data. So there's a list of features here that I'm going to go through. It's not limited to these features. But these are just some of the important ones that we're going to touch on during this webinar. And when I show you these features, you'll see just how powerful a tool it actually is, not just for the digital forensic side of things, but also for the cybersecurity and incident response areas as well. And we'll touch on those right at the end as well, at the end of this webinar, just to summarize where VFC fits in currently with those areas. So we've got, it does not alter the original data. So it works from a forensic image or a write-blocked hard drive. We do have two versions of VFC, which I'll go on to in a couple of slides time. But it doesn't alter the original data. It's either write-blocked or we use the forensic image. It's easy to use and creates VMs within minutes. My background is not digital forensics, and I can't explain how easy of a tool VFC is to actually use. A few clicks of a button, you'll be inside that virtual machine. Various password bypass features. Notoriously, people are quite difficult when it comes to handing over passwords, etc., things like that. VFC will bypass those, no problem. And it's even easier than where it used to be now in version 7 as well, which I'll go through those features for you. We've got standalone VM functionality. Such a powerful tool when it comes to actually presenting in court, but also aiding other teams within the organization, depending on where you work, depending on where your background is as well. You may help other teams out with your digital forensic expertise, but they may have the knowledge to actually find something. So this feature is quite a good feature. Again, I'll show you that further in the webinar. The ability to virtualize single volume partition images, such a good tool. There's not a tool out there that's capable of virtualizing these sort of images. So we're quite happy to have that in here as well. And again, I'll touch on that a bit later on. We've got a really, really powerful VFC triage tool, which provides you with a triage log and within around 30 seconds of pointing an image or an original drive towards VFC. And we've got a really nice, powerful inject files feature as well, which is going to be discussed in the first case study when we get onto that. So the VFC success stories that we're going to apply to this webinar, I feel like it's all well and good us showing you just the features, but we want to show you how successful it has been with these features and where VFC has actually been the driving forces in these cases. So we've got a single volume partition image / S mode case. So that's a bit of a two-parter. We've got a cryptocurrency and Brave browser case as well. Again, another two-parter, and we'll obviously dive into these in a moment. We've got a financial investigation as well, so it's not just limited to what you would expect a digital forensic investigator to look through. We've got a vulnerability testing success story too, which then leaks into the incident response side of things, the cybersecurity side of things as well, but it all encompasses the whole three of those within that case study. And we've also got a public case study as well from Oklahoma State Police, which I'll be able to provide Megan with afterwards when she sends this out to people. We'll provide that link at the same time so you can read up more into the case. Obviously, we've got a time limit here, but there's so much about that case online. I'd urge you to give that a read, and you'll be able to see just how powerful VFC was at getting that case over the line. Without any spoilers about what I'll be discussing later on, that case would have gone cold if it wasn't for VFC. All the other cases, we do have to keep anonymous just because of the nature of what the case was. But throughout this, I'm going to do my best to recreate those cases using a test image that I've got and showing you the features in VFC of how they got those cases over the line. So, as I mentioned, there are two sides to VFC in terms of what we offer. So we offer a VFC lab and VFC portable. The physical components of what VFC lab is simply that on the screen. It's an activation dongle. You'll need that plugged into the machine that you're using VFC on in order for it to work. And you'd have VFC installed on your machine. Now, you will need VMware installed as well. If you're law enforcement, that's free for law enforcement to use. It does work with VirtualBox as well. VMware would still need to be installed, but if you do prefer to use VirtualBox or another virtualization tool, you can still do that. You just would need the VMware installed. Like I say, it's free to install, so there should be no issue with that at all. And then onto the portable version. So exactly the same as the lab version in terms of that activation dongle, but you can see we've got some other things on there as well. So number 2 is the portable environment itself. That contains like a Windows to go environment type thing. For you then to install, you can install whatever you want on there as alongside VFC. So you could have imaging tools, you could have RAM analysis tools, you could put what you want on there in order to complete your task. So again, digital forensics, on-scene triage work, incident response work, it'll be slightly different. So we give you the instructions to configure that yourself, just because of what you can use VFC for. If we were to configure that, then it'd prove difficult for you to install what you needed to install on there. So someone who's doing incident response will need completely different tools to what a digital forensic investigator may need. There are some positives of using the portable version as well, which again I'll touch on throughout this webinar, through the success stories and why it takes VFC to the next level. 3 and 4, very straightforward. We've just got an external hard drive there, and we've got a USB hub too for multiple USBs. We don't know what the original laptop connection ports are going to be like. It may be, if it's a new one, may just be USB Type-C, so you may need a different adapter and things like that. But majority of the time, this is all you would need to take with you. So onto the case studies themselves. What I'm going to do is discuss the remit of the case studies as we go along. Obviously, there's 5 to go through. Explain what hurdles the user of VFC in these instances found, and why VFC was the tool that got this over the line, and why VFC was the driving force. So the first one is obviously the single volume partition image / S mode. So this is a quote from the user. We had an urgent collection of devices which included a Windows laptop, Lenovo laptop. When the exhibit was returned to the lab, I was able to identify the laptop's internal hard drive as an eMMC, an embedded multimedia card. Now, if you're not aware of what one of those is, it's quite a flimsy, notoriously difficult to remove internal hard drive. There's just so many reports of those breaking when trying to remove that. You'd rather not want to remove that sort of drive. So obviously that's the first hurdle there. And when we were looking through that image, we also found that the OS was Windows 11 with S mode enabled. If we're not aware of what S mode is, it's like a slimmed down version of Windows. So similar to like a Chromebook OS, you can only install on this Microsoft Authentic software from the Microsoft Store. So when it comes to opening a virtual machine up using even our password tools, any other tools you want to install on there, it's very difficult to do. And it just won't let you do it because of that S mode being enabled. So the 2 hurdles, as you can see, is the eMMC and the S mode. There are a few features here where VFC can get around it. So what I'm going to do is I've got an image here, and I'm also going to open up VFC for you. So the first thing what we want to do is make sure that eMMC stays intact as best we can. And in this instance, because we've got VFC in the portable version, we don't actually need to remove that drive. So what we're going to do in this instance is create a virtual machine using VFC Portable. How VFC Portable works is you'll plug it into the original device, go into the BIOS, boot to USB only. That way, it'll boot into this portable environment. Then once we're into VFC, we go to the settings and tools tabs and make sure that we've got this software right blocking behavior enabled. I'm just going to zoom in on that. If you just bear with me 1 second, I'll just open the Zoom software. So you can see here we've got software right blocking behavior for the portable edition. So we'll just come out of that, let the Zoom feature do its thing. So once they are enabled, you'll be able to freely use VFC on the suspect's machine. The tagline that is perfect for VFC Portable is that, and the amount of people that we've spoken to that I'd just love to open up that laptop, the original laptop, or switch on the original PC. VFC Portable allows you to do that. So now you can actually do that while still being forensically sound. So what we're going to do, and what the original user did in this instance, was inject FTK into the virtual machine and take a single volume partition image of that machine with inside the VM. So the first thing we want to do is go into the options tab, the cog there, and I'm going to zoom in again. So you can see up here we've got this box ticked, include drives with non-bootable partitions. Because I'm recreating this demonstration, I am actually using a single volume partition image. It's a decrypted DD image. So if I don't have that ticked, VFC won't be able to create a virtual machine. And so I've got that ticked there. That's as far as it goes in terms of how difficult it is to use that feature. If that's ticked, it's going to virtualize. Then I'm going to bring your attention down here to the bottom right. So the first couple of features I want to discuss are the inject generic password reset tool, the conversion of online accounts to local accounts, and the removal of the local account password. So those are free password tools already that we have ticked. So we can actually remove those local account passwords as the virtual machine has been created. The amount of times, because we go out and about in the UK all the time and visiting clients to show them the latest features and everything like that, and the amount of times that my colleagues have to nudge me and say, Tom, don't forget the password tools. Just because it's so easy to have that ticked and you're bypassing the password every time, you don't need to get the password off the suspect. And so if we've got those ticked, we'll be in this virtual machine without any issue. Then a bit further down, we've got the disable Windows S mode. Again, just like the virtualizing the single volume partition images, we've got the disable S mode. It's just a tick box. If that's ticked, it will disable S mode while the virtual machine is being created. That way, when we're in there, the password tool will have done its job. And then we can also start running FTK inside there to create a single volume partition image, which then we can use to conduct the rest of the investigation. That then leads me nicely onto the add files to VM feature. To get FTK in there, we want it to be as simple and straightforward as possible. You have that box ticked here, and then select these 3 buttons here. Now, I've already got a pre-made folder of tools that I'm going to inject. This is where it's perfect for the different sectors. So the digital forensic, cybersecurity, incident response side of things, all those 3 different facets. You can inject what you want. So going throughout these case studies as well, the different case studies, but I can use this tool to inject different tools each time to help me with my analysis work. The best way to have a look at something is look at it in its original format. So we can install forensic tools inside that virtual machine while still having access to all those artifacts within inside that virtual machine too. So I've got that inject files folder there. Like I say, you'll put what you need to put in there. And then I'm going to click OK. So once we've done that, it's a case of them making the virtual machine. So I've got VFC mount open here. And VFC is our own mounting tool that we've created to work alongside VFC. It's also downloadable as a free standalone tool too. So if you just want a no-nonsense mounting tool for free, go to our website and go to the downloads page and you'll be able to download that no problem. I've got a couple of images mounted already. I've got a virtual machine already created. So I've got a second image mounted so I can show you how VFC itself actually works. So if we come out of this, I'm now going to select a drive, and I believe the one I want to select is, if I just give it a refresh, we'll make sure we get the right one. And the beauty is if you do select the wrong one, it doesn't actually matter. VFC will just tell you it can't create it from it, which is fine, as you can see there. So you just simply select a different one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this generic one, which should be the other image that I've got mounted. You can see there at the bottom that it's extracting volume information and everything like that. And then we're going to have eventually, should be within about 30 seconds, a full comprehensive triage log from VFC. And now it's not designed to give you a full triage log in terms of what other dedicated triage tools do. But if you want to have a quick look and get quick information from that device, you'll be able to do so with no issue. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I'll just actually suspend this one and reopen it in a moment and see if I can get this working. As is most live demos, we can't guarantee tech's going to be on our side sometimes. So we'll just let VFC do its job there. You can see it is actually doing it. I've got a lot of things running on this laptop, so apologies. But this image itself only has one partition. So it's auto-analyzed that partition for me. If it's got multiple volumes, it's simply select this drop-down box and select the volume that you want to do. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the largest one. If it's got separate volumes in terms of it's got a separate Linux partition on there or something like that, that will still display in there and you can select which one you want to do. If it's, for example, a single volume partition image, it should all be in one, and once you access that, you should have access to everything. So you can see now on the right-hand side, I've got initial triage. So I can see what guest operating system it is. I can see when it was last used, who the registered owner was, whether it's password protected with the MTLM hashes. So I know those have got passwords on there, but we're going to bypass those anyway. Then if I click on this view triage button at the bottom, we're going to get information, and I'm just going to scan through this at the moment because I want to touch on this a bit later in a different case study. But if we start scrolling through this, we can start just having a look. So recently accessed files on there. We've got recent downloads. We've got recent applications, recent documents, recent URLs, installed applications, Windows history, Chrome history. Right down at the bottom of that Chrome history is Windows links and also a list of USB devices that have been connected to that drive. And if you're running these on your forensic machines or in the VFC portable environment, you will have that information within 30 seconds of pointing that original drive or image towards VFC. So in terms of getting that triage information, it's second to none at how quick it pulls that through. And even then, you can use it to start prioritizing workload and just triaging what devices actually need to be looked at. You can start working, okay, this device here is the device that we need to look through first. We found that out within a couple of minutes of pointing them all towards VFC. Once we've done that, it's a case of then creating a new virtual machine. Like I say, I've already got one created, so I'm just going to open that up now and let that open up in VMware and just launch that. If we just let my machine catch up with all the clicking, it's opened up on a different screen. I won't be a second. So you can see here now that the virtual machine is booting up. If you can imagine being on scene at this point and actually going through this device, you're going through the desktop, going through all the files, going through absolutely everything on their hardware as well. And the beauty of that is you can use all their RAM, all their processors. So if it's quite a powerful machine, it doesn't matter. You can use what they are using. So we get quite a lot of gaming rigs. I'm just going to let that restore. And then I'll be able to show you where to find the injected files. And then obviously using FTK or a different imaging tool, if you do use a different imaging tool, how you can just open that up, run it, and then create your virtual machine. Sorry, your image from the virtual machine. It's getting there. There we go. Perfect. So you can see now we're in the desktop and we can go through that just like the original user would have been able to do. So if I now open up File Explorer and go into the C drive, click into that. And there we go. I've opened up a couple because I'm trigger happy. We'll let that load. I will be touching on that a bit later on anyway as well. So I'll be able to show you in there. I'll just let that virtual machine catch up a little bit. So going on to the next case study. So we've got cryptocurrency and Brave browser. So again, it's a bit of a two-parter. So the first part is accessing crucial cryptocurrency data. When other forensic tools extracted the crypto data, they were unable to decode that data. VFC was used to view that data in its original form. And the crypto application was accessed and the stored transaction history was easily viewed. We were then able to export this data to CSV and we reviewed it on a forensic workstation. So without VFC, we wouldn't have actually, well, this user, sorry, they wouldn't have actually been able to analyze this crypto data as easily, or if at all, just because of the nature of what cryptocurrency is and the data that comes with it. We've got many use cases of crypto. This is the one that we decided to use, but there's been instances where before VFC was introduced into some of our customers' toolkit, that cryptocurrency was being moved from different people's wallets and then being able to actually analyze that transaction data. It was just too late to do at the point that they got access to it. With the virtual machine, you are accessing it just like they would have been able to access it. So the likelihood of coming across multiple factor authentication and things like that doesn't necessarily play a part in this. If you were to access it on a different platform, you would need their identity essentially to access this. But because it's in its original form, in its original environment, this user was able to access this cryptocurrency information and get this case over the line. So the second part of this case study involves Brave Browser. So Brave Browser was also installed on this device. If you don't know what Brave Browser is, it's notoriously anti-forensic. It's a privacy-focused browser where it blocks advertisements, web trackers as part of its default settings. So VFC enabled the browser history data to be manually reviewed, and the SQLite databases were pulled from the user data folder in the virtual machine. Using the SQLite and the data reviewed in the web history, displayed in VFC generated VM, they were able to produce the full browsing, Brave browsing history and download history from the program. So I'm going to show you how that works now. So hopefully it's playing ball with me, and we will minimize those. So as standard now, virtual machines within VFC, the setting is default to create virtual machines with 4 gigabytes of RAM. If you're using the portable version, you're able to untick that and it'll just create it maximum RAM that it can based on what's connected internally. So like I say, you can run that just like the original user would have been able to run that. So I'll open up Brave Browser here. The beauty of this as well is that there's Brave Browser history, because I've used this image multiple times, has got cached data there. So we can have a look at tabs that have been opened. And what we can do at this point is start taking screenshots of putting it into a report. We have a regular user has helped us out a lot in terms of R&D and things like that. And when it comes to having screenshots in a report, he says he's put 40 odd pages worth of a report together, detailing where everything is and everything like that. But screenshots are still necessary for him because they have to explain in court even where certain icons are laid out on the desktop and things like that. So you can see already up at the top, we've got that cached data there. I'm not going to go through that at the moment, just because I appreciate that we are running within a specific time frame at this point. And we're already 30 minutes into it, and I've got a few more case studies to go through. So what we can start doing now, take screenshots, start having a look through all of those. I've already got the internet history open here, so I'll tick into this. And what we can do here is look at the triage information that we've got, have a look at the install date, and we'll find that that triage log is showing the install date is the same as the earliest history. Is relatively close. It kind of matches. It's the same day. So the internet history that we've actually got here, I'm just going to zoom in again if I can. The internet history that we've actually got here is pretty much full, and we can export that to a CSV file, move that onto our host machine, and go through that. And you can also see we've got a wallet here as well. Now, we haven't got a cryptocurrency wallet to sign into, and obviously I can't show you the original, but this is how it was found. The user of VFC in this instance told us that they accessed it in the Brave browser. The wallet transaction history was all there with dates, and we were able to actually track that quite nicely. So moving on to the next one, it's a financial investigation. So like I say, slightly different to what some people may be used to looking at, but nonetheless still important and can aid digital forensic teams, even cybersecurity teams, incident response teams with their investigation if they particularly need to hand over to a different team. So we've got a paraphrase quote here from the original user. And so it goes, I originally ordered VFC when I worked for this particular police department and have been using it ever since. VFC has proven to be invaluable. I first searched for forensic virtualization software after assisting a financial crimes investigation. A computer with business records was seized. Data files with obscure file extensions were located during the forensic examination. This person did not have a compatible viewer and couldn't verify manually parsed data. So this data, they couldn't actually analyze it. They did locate the proprietary accounting software within the suspect's image, though. So running the analysis, they actually found that that software was still on that original drive. So in an effort for the user to view the data in a correct format, they contacted the original software creators, the software company, to try and get a copy of this exact software. They didn't get an exact copy, but they did get a copy of it, but it didn't view the data correctly, and because it was slightly different. And also they couldn't guarantee that the settings that were the default settings there were the same as the settings that the original user had in the on the original machine. So they were able to actually view that data properly, even with a copy similar to the original. So this is where VFC comes in, and this is where VFC is so powerful in terms of what it provides. It looks like I've accidentally zoomed in on there, so we'll zoom out. We'll get that working properly. Let it do its thing, let it catch up. But we've got so many things that we can start looking at. There we go. And so we've got so many things we can start looking at in terms of a database. So the first thing is that we're actually able to use that specific version of the software. So let's say it could be 1.2.17, something like that. You're using that version. One step further, you're using the settings that the original user would have used. So whether that is default or whether it's not, it doesn't matter. You've got access to it. The question arises, what if it's a licensed software and it's expired? That doesn't matter. So while I've got that database opening up, if I open VFC up, down here you can see we've got VM startup time and date. I'm not going to zoom in just because I want that virtual machine to load in the background. We can set the virtual machine to start up at any point in the past. So if it is a licensed software that's expired, we can just come out of it, create a virtual machine at a different time, and then boot that up and then have access to that software within its license period. So there's no need to actually purchase a license if needed. You've got access to it inside there. And then once we're inside that virtual machine, once we're inside that database, we can then start running reports using what the database has to run these reports as well. So we can start extracting information, start filtering per contact, per user, per whatever we need to have a look at, per date, whatever, and then extract that data, put that onto our host machine and start looking through it that way in a text format, in a file, in an Excel document format, in whatever format suits best. In this particular database, I'd be very surprised if you've heard of this database, but it's a cheat book database full of cheats for games. And what I normally show is when the virtual machine is caught up, that we can go into there. I can type Pokemon in because I'm a bit of a Pokemon nerd. Some of you may know that, and some of you may have noticed as well with some of the things that I've got going on here. Then I can export that Pokemon document and just go through that, just like I'm the original user. So you can see now it's loaded up. So if I move that across there and I try and get rid of this, it is not being my friend today, but that's not a problem. So if I type in Pokemon in there and hit enter, that is going to then load all the Pokemon cheats up there for me. But if we imagine this is a financial database, we can go through that and start filtering, start having a look through. And it works for all databases as well. You may come across a database that isn't publicly available. It's only available at certain companies because they're that big of a company. They've got their own database that they've had created for them. You've got access to that as well, all with inside that virtual machine, making your life so much easier. You can start just having to play around, start having a look at everything like that. So going back to the presentation, again, I apologize. I realize we are pushing for time here. So onto the vulnerability testing one. This is where VFC can be used and has been used throughout the full timeline of the investigation. So a customer in this instance was faced with a tedious task of having to test the vulnerability and structure of the operating system on the suspect's laptop. So it initially went to court. There was particular evidence found on there. Obviously, I can't dive into it too much, but the suspect turned around and says that there may be malware on there. It wasn't me. I haven't put them there. Maybe the operating system isn't up to scratch and something's leaked through. So, of course, then it gets thrown back out of court. So more investigation work has to take place. So we have to check the vulnerability and structure of that OS. A bit of a quote from the user of VFC. So with the help of VFC, we were able to successfully test and access the vulnerability with amazing results. I don't have to explain that any further. Amazing results because of VFC. On top of that, they were also able to create a standalone virtual machine. And so I did mention I was going to go into that. So this standalone VM feature allows you to create a working copy of the virtual machine that you've just created that doesn't require the original image or drive present for it to work. So when it comes to passing on to different teams, or if you are a digital forensic provider yourself, and you have customers that you need to provide reports for, you can send a standalone copy of a virtual machine that they can access, and all they would need is an emulation tool like VirtualBox, like VMware, for them to view that virtual machine. And the beauty is that if it breaks, which it won't break, but if it does, it doesn't matter. You can just create another one because you've got the original evidence there. And it's as straightforward as following those simple steps on there. You populate this box here, select the virtual machine that you've created, select where you want to save it, export clone, leave it to do its thing, leave it to export that clone, and then you're good to go. Using the file injection feature that I showed you at the beginning, we're able to access those files. It doesn't look like the virtual machine's playing ball for me too much, but I'll try my best to open that up. If not, we do have a video of injecting files, which I'll share with Megan so she can share that to everyone as well, of just how easy it is to inject and access those save files. They were able to install RAM analysis tools. They were able to install malware analysis tools and do the actual investigation work inside that virtual machine. It's a sandbox environment. It can't be broken. But not only that, we can also access the the original users' antivirus software if they've got any on there, or CClean or something like that. Perfect tool for it is VFC, because you've got access to, again, that specific version of that CCleaner. You can see when the last clean took place, if anything's in quarantine and everything like that. You've got full access to it. And all these case studies today would not have got over the line if it wasn't for VFC being included. So going on to the next case study, which is the last one we'll be discussing, is an Oklahoma State Police one. So here's a bit of background of it. So the case involved a victim, and being reported missing after he failed to turn up for a weekend of military drills. The wife was eventually arrested for murder, but later denied knowing anything about the crime, the whereabouts of her husband, or the admission to her friend. Nobody was ever found. Everything in the case was based on circumstantial evidence found on the suspect's computer, cell phone records, and the statement her friend gave. If it wasn't for VFC in this instance, the case went cold. The case was already going cold until VFC was introduced to Oklahoma police. VFC was the driving force in this case. VFC got this case over the line and could have got this case over the line by itself. So here's a bit of a quote from the user. So I convinced the district attorney in this case to allow me to bring a laptop and projector into the courtroom, boot the suspect's computer using VFC and VMware. It made all the difference in the world. Juries and the judge get stuck looking at technical printouts, reports full of computer jargon, and they're just unfamiliar with that sort of information. Instead, they booted up the virtual machine inside the courtroom using VFC and VMware. With the judge, jury, and everyone else in the room, it was clear what had actually happened. And like I say, we'll provide this link afterwards as well. But everything from the way she organized her icons on the desktop, mostly text files showing how to dismember bodies, roast full pig carcasses, etc., to all of her internet history, clearly reassembled in its original format, using the original browser, detailing the searches made for items used in commission of the crime, and all that information was priceless. And so we've got internet chat programs, emails, it was all there in a format that anyone can understand if they've ever looked at a computer. So I don't even necessarily need to go back into the virtual machine for this, but you can actually see that this is a PC now. So you can see how everything's laid out. You can access all these documents. You can see when they were created. You can see when they were last accessed using VFC triage as well, from start to finish. And I don't need to say much more on that case study itself to show you just how powerful of a tool it has been. And so before I ask if there are any questions, I just want to summarize why it's a perfect tool for not only digital forensics. It's obvious why it's a perfect tool for digital forensics, hopefully after what I've just shown you. But when it comes for cybersecurity, looking for artifacts to help identify security incidents and breaches. So things such as event logs, file system metadata, registry files, malware, user activity, etc., and a lot more can be found in a virtual machine in that sandbox environment. VFC, like I say, creates those virtual machines in 2 minutes, so you've got such quick access. In terms of incident response, addressing and managing the security incident in a timely manner, because you are responding, it needs to be done quickly, and you need to get the most out of it. So to reduce the impact, minimize the recovery time, and even the cost as well. So if you are interested in a quotation, get in touch with us. We are offering a discount code as well for anyone attending this this webinar. So if you want to use that code on screen, get in touch with us, send me an email. I'm sure Megan can pass out my email address if she hasn't already. Just so you can see just how cost effective of a tool it is. If you use it on one case, all I'll say is it's probably paid for itself. So yes, thank you very much for listening, everybody. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Russ Nelson, no rush, but when you get a chance, can you explain again the difference between VFC and VFC mount? Thank you. Yes, no problem. So VFC mount is solely just a mounting tool. So that's just to get your images on there. In terms of virtualization itself, that's VFC. So VFC mount's just there to get that tool pointed towards VFC. It's just a simple basic mounting tool that anyone's able to download from our website. If you'd like to go more in depth on that, Russ, if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, more than happy to go through and do a one-on-one. And that goes for everyone as well. If other people want to go a one-on-one, or if anyone has a current case in mind or a past case or potential case going forward and want to know if VFC can help, because I'm pretty sure it can for you, then just let me know and I will sort that out for you. Are there any more questions? If you do come up with any questions when we finish today, just get in touch with me. There's no such thing as a silly question. I ask a lot of them. But if I haven't been clear or you haven't picked anything up, please just let me know. And I'm more than happy to help you out. Super great presentation. Thank you. Do appreciate that. Do the bypass tools have good results on BitLocker drives also? So when it comes to BitLocker, unfortunately, VFC won't decrypt those type of encryptions itself. However, there are a few different tools we can use with the aid of VFC as part of VFC that can potentially get you around it. So the first one being the portable version itself, because everything's still connected in the drive and things like that, especially with TPM encryption. It does come with the caveat that it's not guaranteed to work, but I haven't come across an issue where VFC hasn't got around a TPM device at the moment, and I've tested it on multiple customers' test devices when I've gone out and done in-person visits and everything like that. So if you'd like some more information on that, if you want, again, I'd encourage you to drop me an email, Russ, and we can set up a one-to-one to go through that. Also, what's called a VMem file is created when virtual machines are created. And in that can be used for RAM analysis. If you have a look at the virtual machine folder where you save that, the VMem file will probably be the largest file there. So you can use RAM analysis tools to see if you can pull the BitLocker drive from that. So those are the ways round potentially getting around BitLocker drives. Unfortunately, VFC itself can't decrypt BitLocker itself. Are there any other questions? I can see people in chat saying thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Trista. Recognize some names there, so it's good to see you guys again. Thank you very much, everyone. If you, like I say, drop me an email, and I look forward to hearing from you. Great information. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Now I just need to work out how to leave.